So for today, we will be discussing keyframing. So you will be learning basic and intermediate keyframing techniques here in this presentation, in this discussion. They want you to open your Blender and don't you worry, I'll be writing all the steps in the Microsoft Word and I'll be uploading it in the chat box for your reference. So in this example, we will be using the cube for our keyframing. So don't change this. For the meantime, we will demonstrate the basic ones first using your object here. Okay, just to save some resources in my laptop and in your laptop. For the meantime, we will be animating only this cube, and after getting all the concepts of the cube, you can animate other objects like your donut or the ball that you have created earlier or during the past sessions. You can apply the animation like what we have done yesterday. We practiced first this physics properties on a UV sphere, and then after understanding the concept, we applied it with a ball, right? So same thing today. We will be using the same thing. We will start first applying it on a very simple object, and then later on we can go with the models that you have done in the past. So let me open Microsoft Word here so that I could write all the steps. So let me call this practice 4. This is all about keyframing. So in this practice I'm going to give to you, we will go first with the basic keyframing using the cube, and then the other one we will go with rolling. Okay, we will be rolling the ball. If we have plenty of time, we will be rotating the ball or rolling the ball, the one we created last time. That will be for practice 5. Maybe that will be next week, inshallah. So if we have enough time today, we will be doing the rotating ball. But for the practice, let's start first with the basic keyframing so that you will get the concept of keyframing. So I hope you're ready with you. I'll be writing all the steps here so that you could follow me. Any questions so far? Any question? Is my screen clear? You can read it properly? Is it big enough for you to see the Microsoft Word, or do I need to enlarge it? Is the size enough for you? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. So let's start with part A, which is the preparation phase. Okay. So as I've always telling you, always begin doing your animation, even your modeling, with the camera view by pressing 0, so that you will know the position of your object in your screen. Okay, so let me just note it that. So whenever, let me just write the comments here, whenever doing modeling or animation, always switch to the camera view. Okay, so camera view is press 0, right? Press 0 to activate it. Okay, just have to remember this step. Press 0 to activate the camera view. So that's the first preparation you have to make for this object here, this sit. So the object is within the bounds or the perimeter of our camera. So this is our camera. Okay, I think I discussed this to you last time, the purpose of this. Anything inside this camera will be rendered, okay, will be visible to your animation. So anything outside Anything outside this camera won't be seen during the render. So it's very important that you have to always switch with the camera view to check the position of your object. Now I want you to make basic animation. So the requirement for today is just basic animation, okay, of the keyframing. So by the way, if you remember, I discussed to you the concept of keyframing from our last discussion in visual effects. Let me just open it just to remind everybody about the topic on keyframing. Concept of, I think this is about three-dimensional computer animation. Let me just give you an idea for the concept of keyframing before I proceed with the next example. Actually, doing this practical in 10 minutes you can't do it. Actually, to tell you honestly, all the practicals I'm teaching you can't do them in 10 or 5 minutes or 20 minutes even. But I want you to understand the concept. Okay, it's very important that you understand the concept before you do a practical or a session, because if you understand the concept, then if you'll be given a different scenario, you can apply that concept because you know the concept rather than just simply doing it. So if you know the concept with you, and then you can apply it with any situation, right? So look at this. This is keyframing, right? So this is keyframing. Okay. So if you look at this one, so from point A to point B, there is something that happens, right? From point A to point B. So from point A, the hand of this lady is from this this portion, and then little by little it moves, correct? So you have keyframes here, keyframe A and keyframe B. So we have the beginning of the frame A here, and we have the beginning of the frame B, I mean the ending of a keyframe B here. So likewise, in this example, I want you to move the box, okay? I want you to move the box, assuming this is my camera, okay? So I want you to make an animation like this, wherein the box will start from here okay, then I want you to move the box to this position. Okay, so this is the output I want you to do for today's activity. Okay, so I have to create two keyframes here in this example because it's very simple only. So from point A, which is the origin, okay, from the origin point, I want you to move the object from the origin, from point A to point B. Okay, point B, which is the end. Okay, let me just move it here. So this is what I want you to do in this exercise. Of course, in between this point A, between point A and point B, there will be time here. Okay, so there will be time involved here. So here comes your frame rate. Okay, your frame rate. So how fast this object moves from this place to this place, it depends upon your time, okay, the frame rate. Okay, the frame rate also affects the time. So from here to here, the speed can be dictated later on as you set it in your in your timeline. So using your timeline, you can dictate how fast this object moves from this point up to this point. Okay, later we will do 2 examples so that you will see the difference in changing the time in the timeline and what is the impact of this on the speed. Okay, so going back to Blender, okay, this is my object as I've told you earlier. So the next step that you need to do here is please check if your object is properly positioned on the X, Y, and Z axis. Okay, so this is my object. Let me zoom it. Okay, so where is the X here? This is the X, right? This is the Y, that one. You will see it, it's moving here in my screen here. You will see it as I press the arrow. You will see this is Y, this is X, sorry, this is X, this is Y, and this top is the Z. Okay, so if I'm going to pan this object, you will see that the object here is halfway, right? It's halfway the Z axis, correct? So half of the shape of the box is on the Z axis. So you need to do the second step, which is you have to perform the next step, which is set the position of the cube or your object if you have another object. Okay, see to it that the object is in ground zero. Okay, ground zero, meaning adjust the Z axis. Okay, adjust the Z axis of the object. This is a step that you need to do. So for you to do that, you have 2 methods. Okay, so method A, the one you are always doing, drag the XYZ position, drag the XYZ arrows, okay, to change the position of the object. Okay, so you can't do it by, you have to zoom it like this. Normally I do like this one so that I could see the lines here. So since I am concerned with the Z axis, I could move it like this. Okay, or if I don't want this, I could go with the properties of this cube by going to the properties. That's method B. So method B is about method B, you can adjust the XYZ position by putting the values or entering the values in the property toolbox. Okay, in the object property toolbox, the palette. Okay, so where to get it? So click the plus sign, click the plus sign, okay, near the scene 3, okay, on the right of your screen of the Blender environment. Okay, So you will see it. You will see something like this. It's a scene, right? So there is one button here, which is a plus sign. This one. It's in the top. Let me just go with the magnifier. You can see it here. This one. This plus sign here. Have you seen it? So let's proceed. So as I've said earlier, on the step I gave you, you can change the value by using method B. You can adjust it using this property, the object's property, the palette. So I just want you to go here on this side of the screen, this one here, click it, and it will show a window like this. Okay, so this window, if you are working with precise values, especially if you are dealing with mathematically based things, let's say for example you want to calculate the angle or the rotation, so on and so forth, we need specific values, right? Because look at this, when I drag my Z here, have you noticed earlier, okay, just moving my Z here sometimes will not give me the accurate value. Let's say this, for example, I put it in here. Okay, I drag Z into 1. So I was thinking that my object is already on the Z, on the top of the Z axis, right? But look at my value here. My value here, the value of my Z here is not actually 1. There is still a decimal point showing here, right? 1.01004. So if I am dealing with highly sensitive data, let's say for example a specific values I want to work with, and I involve some calculation, so this would affect the performance of my animation later on. So what will I do is, instead of dragging it with the arrow, I could change the value here. Let's say for example if I make it 2, it will move the object up, right? 2. If I'll put 0 here, what happens to the object? It goes halfway, right? It goes halfway of the Z axis, if you will see it, right? So if I change it to 1 here, let's say I want to put it 1, and it goes perfectly on the Z axis. So the Z axis will be increased to up, and then perfectly the base, if you will see the base of this object here, the base of the object is perfectly aligned with the X and the Y axis, if you will see. Okay, it's perfectly on the ground. If you look at it like this, it's perfectly on the ground. So it means that working with the property palette will give you more accurate value. So same thing here if you want to do scaling. So normally what do? Is you press S, right? You press S and then drag the object, right? So if you will see, if I press S only, S, and then if you will notice on the right side of my screen, the value for the scale for X, Y, and Z are also changing proportionately, right? And also the dimension is also changing, right? Have you noticed it? The dimension is changing, the scale is also changing, all the same thing. Now, if I want to scale only, let's say for example the X axis, I want to scale the X axis, I could press scale at the same time X. It will only scale it on the X, right? So I can now make a bus here if I want. This is a bus. Escape. If I want to scale the Y, I will just press S and Y, and then it will scale it into the Y. No matter what you drag here, it will only scale the Y. Have you noticed? So likely if you look on the property toolbox, palettes, you will see that the Y is changing as I change the scale and also the dimension. Have you noticed it? Now If I want to scale the Z, I just press S and Z at the same time. If I move the handle here, and then I could be able to scale it, right? So you can actually you can manually scale it by moving like this, or you can scale it by typing the values on the palettes. Let me write it on the Microsoft Word so that you will have a reference later on. Okay. My screen is very slow. I'm seeing it in my phone. Try to scale the object. Try to scale the object. Going back, for you to scale the object, you can do two methods. Okay, so method A, you could so manual or drag, press S and drag, right? Press S and drag to scale the object. So you can choose this combination. So use this combination. Okay. So S scale X, Y, Z, at the same time. Okay, so proportional. Call it proportional. So the other one is you can press S plus X, okay, scale on reference to x-axis. So S plus Y to scale with reference to y-axis, and S plus Z, okay, to scale with reference to the z-axis. Okay, so you will see when you save it, we call it practice 4, and then we put it in my lecture. I'll upload it later on in our WhatsApp. I mean in the chat box. So this is about keyframe. Okay, so going back with example, sorry for that. Again, if I press S, you can scale it proportionally, and you will see on the right screen under scale, you will see that X, Y, Z is changing at the same time. Now press escape to undo the scaling. Press escape to undo the scaling. And if you want to scale with respect to X, just press S and X. At the same time, you will be doing it with respect to X. Press escape to skip it. Press S and Y. You will see a line will be showing to you, right? Meaning towards Y. So you can do the scaling in the Y-axis. And you will see on the right side of my screen, only Y is changing. X and Z are locked. If I want to scale it with respect to Z, I'll press S and Z. You'll see a vertical line is shown representing that I am scaling with respect to Z. And you will see on the right side of my screen, the value of Z is changing, but not for X and Y. Okay? So this will be for the preparation phase. Okay. So the second method for scaling is, if you want to scale it on the second method, you can go with method B, which is adjust the value of x, y, z in the, by entering the values, in the object property palette. Okay, so you have ways like this for you to do. So this for the preparation. Okay, this is the preparation phase. We can now proceed to part B. Okay, so let us assume that this object is properly positioned. Okay, so for the part B, which is the actual work, which is keyframing, so let's go with adding keyframes. Going back to the map, I want you to perform this animation for this practice. I want you to move this object from this point up to this point. So we did the initial phase of the adjustment. So I want you to move the cube, but of course you have to go with the camera view. That's very important for you to see it. Let me note it again in here. Move or switch the camera view. Press 0. Okay, so switch to camera view. That's very important, so that you will see the positioning, okay, proper positioning of the object here. So next, using the illustration given for the animation, so move or position or change the X position of the object, okay, using the methods above used in part A. Okay, but for now let me drag it. So I could drag it. So this is the X, right? This red arrow here is the X. To verify what arrow I am clicking, go here down. You will see it in here at the bottom. Okay, so I could click this red arrow here, then I could move the object there. Okay, so this is my object, so you could put it somewhere here. So let's see the map. It's somewhere here. Okay, next I want you to move this to this point, right? So I want you to move this object to this point here, which is based on this example should be on this position, right? So let's try to apply keyframing. For you to apply keyframing, so you have to take note first, change the X position of the object using the above method. Okay, so set the initial position of the object. Okay, let's say in this we change the value of X in this example. Okay, then after this you have to right click the timeline. Okay, here at the bottom, click the timeline here, right click this one, right click this, or you could type the value here at the bottom. Can you see my screen or not? Let me just magnify it so that you could see. So go to the timeline here in the bottom, Okay, in this bottom part of your screen you will see this, right? So moved, so this 0 here, you can right click it or you can type here 0, okay, to determine that you want to go to 0 position or you want to go to 1. Okay, so let's say we want to go to 1 here, so it means on my keyframe at time 1, okay, at time 1 the position of my object is here. Okay, this is the meaning of this one. On time 1 the position of my object is in here. That's for time 1, this one with respect to this. So I have to create a keyframe. How to create the keyframe here? So let me just write it on the step so that you will know it later. Okay, to create the keyframe, okay, right click on the x-axis of the object's property palette. Okay, you have to remember this. Since we only change x, here in this example, only the value of x was changed, right? Because we didn't change y, we didn't change z. So what we will do is we have to right click on the x position of your object here. This time the position of the object is in negative 9.62. So right click this and then choose insert keyframe. Click this. So you will see it becomes yellow, right? It becomes yellow. So meaning from X, Y, Z we created this keyframe, meaning the position of this object is the first keyframe. Clear? You have to remember Blender is also using the concept of keyframing. Just tell Blender the keyframes and then the animation in between, Blender will do it for you. Did you get the point? Okay, so you have to remember Blender is using the concept of keyframing. So it means that you're only required to provide the position for point A and then the position for point B, and Blender will do the animation in between for you. Okay, no need to problem that. Blender will be doing the animation for you automatically because Blender is using the concept of keyframing. Now, going back here, the next thing I need to do now is, did I write it on the step so far? I think I did not write it. Right click on the object property palette, then I have a wrong spelling here, then select insert keyframe. The next, set the next or last. If you have multiple keyframes, you have to set them later. Okay, so in the example we will do it later on, multiple keyframes, don't you worry. For now I just want you to do start and end. Set the next or last keyframe, keyframe. Okay, keyframe. What you will do is drag the position of the object and create keyframe on that. Okay. Okay, but you have to take note, always select the timeline. Okay, always select the time, always choose the time in the timeline. Okay, so in this example we need to go here. So let's say, for example, I want it to be in the 250. Okay, so I could select this 250 here if I want by clicking it, or I could go here, type the value here. Okay, I could type the value here 250, or I could select this to go with the last frame. So this is the last frame, okay, in the timeline. Okay, so after choosing this, meaning I will create timeline, I'll create keyframe here. Okay, so meaning in this time 250, there will be something that will happen in the animation. Okay, at time 250. So meaning at time 0, my object is in this position. Okay, it's in this position at time 0. Now at time 250, my object should be here. Okay, it should be here. So again, I have to go to the same step I did earlier. Okay, so in this position, so choose this, right click, choose, and then move the object in this position, and you will see it's changed here. It's now 4.219, right? Right click it, again insert keyframe. Clear? So if I'll move now my timeline here, if I play it, when I click to this one, the box goes there, right? So if I move here at the end, the box move here, right? So I'm only clicking this these arrows here. Let me just zoom it for you to see. So if I click this arrow, the object goes backward. Have you noticed? It's the animation now. You will see the animation here. Correct? So if I move the object here, let me go back first on the initial position. I can now play my animation by pressing the play button. Then you will see the movement. Have you seen it?
Yes, Doctor.
So it's moving, right? So this is how you do the keyframing. That's why I am always advising you to switch to the camera view so that you will see the behavior of your objects. Because if you don't use the camera view, you might be working on this area of the screen, and then nothing happens during the render process, right? So let me change to cycles render just to make this one a little bit faster. So let me just pause, go back. So for me to see this one, let me go from this portion of the window. I want to change it from this, from solid view. I will change it to rendered, and then I could see this object here. So when I play it, okay, so this is the rendered view. This is the output of the rendering. So the step is very simple, right? It's very, very simple. Not much important things to do here for the keyframing. Okay, not even some mathematical things you have to do. So this is quite easy to understand. Now I want you to do another project, but this time I want you to do a different path. Okay, let me just draw it so that you will see what I want you to do. So let's try to make multiple keyframes here. So let's go with the multiple keyframes. Okay, let's go with the multiple keyframes. So same thing, I want you to do like this. This is the camera. So let me just insert some pictures here, if I could do. So let me go with Bing. Okay, I'll take this cube as an example. Okay, so I want you to do something like this on the cube. So I want you to do like this. So the cube moves in this position. The second position is here. And then third position is here. Then fourth position is here. Then last position, it's here. So I want you to do an animation like this, where the cube will move from here, then here, then here, and then here. So this is a challenge I want you to do this time. Okay? So how many keyframes we're going to make for this example? How many keyframes?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 frames.
Very good. 5 keyframes we're going to make for this example, right? So we can do it. I think we have to create a new project. It's better to create a new project so that I will clear my my memory. New. Okay, let's do a new project here. So again, you can change the position of this. Okay, change the Z of this object by pressing this. I want the Z to be on 1. Okay, then I'll go to camera view, which is zoom, but this time I want this object to be scaled a little bit smaller. So let's say, for example, I will scale it to a little bit small, okay, so that we could see a good view. So maybe you can scale it with 0.05 for XYZ, 0.05. That's it. Okay, so 0.05, you have to scale it with 0.05 here. Okay, so again, for the keyframing, since we have 5 keyframes, correct? So my timeline is from 0 up to 250. So maybe we could divide this into how many? Maybe 50, right? Every 50, correct? Because we have 5 keyframes, maybe 50. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Anyways, you can do the keyframing if you want, if you wish. No, you can't change. You have to remember, the smaller the keyframes here, the faster the animation would be, the movement of the box. Okay, I just want to demonstrate to you these multiple keyframes here. So let me zoom the camera so that you will see what I'm doing. So let's see the map. So the initial position is somewhere here, and then move in there, and then move in here, and here, and here. Correct? So let me move my object here and move here. You have to practice how to do the moving, okay? So if I am moving this one, I have to use this. If I have to move this, I have to use this. If I have to move up, this one, okay? So I want my object to be here. Then I want to travel it to there, right? So this is my initial position of my object. So I am on timeline 0, right click timeline 0, click this object, and then right click insert keyframe. Kalas. Next, on the next keyframe, I will right click 50. Okay, I will right click 50, move my object here on this position, then right click again. I have to go with insert keyframe. My screen is very slow. Okay, so you will see now I have two keyframes here, keyframe 0 at the bottom and keyframe 50 on the timeline, the second keyframe. So my box is here. So if I will play it, it should be like this. Okay, have you seen it? So when I play the animation, it should be like this. I'm having a very slow internet connection, but it's fine. Next, I'm done with this part of the animation. Let me go now on this side. From here, I have to create a keyframe, right? So what I'm going to do now is, on 100, I have to right click 100 here. Okay, have you seen it? I right click 100. My internet is very slow. Have you seen it? I right click 100, so the yellow is showing on your screen for 100. So I have a very slow internet connection, sorry for that. So right click this one, the 100, and then try to reposition again the object for the third frame, which is this one. Okay, then from here again, insert another keyframe. Okay, so when you go back with the animation, it should be like this. So when you play it, it should be like this. Oh, there's delay in my screen. It takes time for you to see it. Okay, have you seen the animation? Correct. Now let's move to the next direction. So from here to here we finished, and from here to here we finished. Now let's go with the animation from here to here. Okay, so again, on timeline 150, I have to right click. After right clicking, I have to move. Now this time I am moving the y axis, right? So I have to press this yellow here, then I have to move it here on this side. Okay, then on this new position, I have to right click and insert keyframe. Okay, next I have to go to 200. I'll go to 200 right click it, and then move my object in this side of the screen, right click again, and then insert keyframes. So let's review our animation. Let's try to play it. So you should see moving like this: 1 in there, 2 in here, 3 in here, and 4 and 5. Okay, have you seen the animation in your screen? If you will notice in Blender, you don't have to set the values of X, Y, Z as the object moves, right? So you just have to determine the value of, the timeline for the first keyframe, and then the timeline for the second keyframe, and then just create keyframe in there, and then Blender will automatically generate the animation for you in between. Okay, the in between of the keyframes, Blender will provide you or generate to you the animation. You don't have to animate each and every frame here in the timeline. Okay, just the keyframe, the most important part of the frame, and then everything will be created for you by Blender. Now it's a time for you to render your object. This animation, we can render it. Okay, so you can do the rendering by going to this with this camera here on the palette. On the right palette, you will see a camera, right? This camera you will see. Okay, and then click the render part. This one is tab here. Just have to click the render, and it will generate a screen like this to you. Then after that, you could go with your presets. Okay, you can go with your presets here. So you can change the resolution of your output. Then you can change your frame range. If you want to start from 1 here and up to 250, it's all up to you. If you want to make it more, it's all up to you. You can change it in here. So the frame rate is 24 FPS. Okay, so you can do this. So we are now ready to do the rendering. So if you want to render, if you want the output for the rendering, you can see here in the bottom of the screen, you can render the outputs by converting it into PNG or series of pictures. If you want, you can render it with series of pictures here like JPEG or PNGs. That's it. So meaning every render, your Blender will produce series of pictures. Okay, it will produce you series of pictures. So if you want also the directory, you can change it. The output where you want the rendering will go, you can change it. Let's say for example, I'll put it to desktop. Okay, so I'll select desktop as my output renderer for this project only. Accept it. Then after this, you can select here if you want your output to be direct MPEG video. Okay, so if I'll choose MPEG video, this animation will be rendered in an MPEG format, meaning it's a movie already. So click this one, Okay, this MPEG here, and then you're ready. Go with Blender Render here, and then go with the rendering here on the top, and then press render animation, not render image, okay? Render animation, because you're not doing modeling anymore, you are doing animation. So in the rendering animation, the model, the design, and the animation will be rendered all together. So when you press render animation, it will render your work. It might take time, but it will do it for you. Okay, rendering is finished for me. Okay, so let's see what was the output if it was created. So this is the output that we rendered earlier. You will see it in the desktop, right? It's in the form of a video, so you can play it if you want, and it will open your animation like this. So this is now a video, okay, like this. It's now in a form of a video. So maybe you might want to change the light. Maybe you could add additional light here. So I'll go to lamp and I'll go with sun to change my light. Okay, and then when I go with the render, okay, so I could render it again. Let me do the rendering. Okay, so I'm done with the rendering process. Let me press escape to exit. And then I could see here again my new render. It will overwrite, right? So I change the light, the lamp, into sun, so it gave me a different view. So you may opt to change the platform here. I suggest you can change the platform to give more emphasis on your object. So you might add, let's say, a mesh, and then go with plane, then scale the plane in such a way it could cover all the stage here, just to give emphasis with your object. And then go with camera view 0. Then you can do with the rendering again. You can re-render. You can do the rendering, the animation here. You can render. So if you will see this time, the color is different when you do the rendering. And if you will see, rendering this time will take a little bit of the time, because we have two objects, right? One is the plane and the other one is the cube. So rendering will take a little bit longer as compared to the first one, because in the first one we only have one object, which is the cube, but this time we added another object, which is the plane. So in this case, rendering will take time. And look, you will see the shadow is now clearer, right? Because we put a table or a ground for our object. Okay, so my rendering is finished. we are now ready to see the output. So go back with the video here that was generated by the render. You will see now it's more realistic than the first one. So next meeting we will be doing practice 5, which is about, we'll talk about object rotation. Okay, we'll talk about object rotation next meeting. So I hope you will be all present next meeting. It's a little bit exciting. We'll be doing some rotation of the ball here. And this practice for next meeting is a little bit longer. It's quite longer because there will be some mathematical discussions here. So please be ready on the next meeting, Monday, God willing, for the next discussion.